everybody. Welcome to the Jezebelle Trinity podcast. And I am your host, Trinity Stella. Welcome tonight. I'm so glad you guys are here. I am happy to be here, and I hope you are doing well tonight. Being good, kind, safe, and having a good week. Today is Thursday, September 25th, 2025. So last night I gave a little 7 minute podcast on our loved ones and checking in on them and why we discard the ones we love who are actively using, who are actively drinking. Um, Let me give you a little background though about why I started this podcast. I started this podcast because I wanted to talk about things that are hard to talk about, the truths that nobody likes to admit or talk about, the uncomfortable truths, and this is one of them. And um the silence, and help give a voice to those who can't speak up. And like I said, one of the things that bothered me the most and was when I was using, and a lot, during those days and still today, a lot of people don't make it, they don't make it through them hard times. There's a lot of overdoses and um deaths. So a lot of us don't make it through that. So I'm grateful to say that I'm I'm I made it through that, and it means a lot to me to want to help those who are still trying to escape that cycle. Most of the people who are actively actively using are immersed in shame and guilt because they can't stop making the same choices. They don't know how to stop making the same choices. How do you know when how do you know that you have different choices, different options? Um, and then I know how it is to be there, to be in that position, and to feel not worthy, and to have your own loved ones kind of write you off, you know, like I just wanted to go deeper into that painful reality why so many of us go unseen until tragedy forces people to care. And it really hit home for me, and I'm just gonna get personal here, is when my son's father passed away, and him and I were going through a hard time. And at his funeral, there was just a lot of people there, and at the time I was still using, and I was angry. I was very angry to see everybody there because I'm like, where were all these people while we were having this hard time, writing us off as, oh, they're drug addicts, they're liars, they're thieves, and just turn their back on us. And that was very frustrating. But I mean, I went from being angry to finding healing in myself, to finally start going back to the funerals, to showing up, because I quit going after that. I quit going because I thought it was just all fake, I guess, because putting up a front for people. And so I quit going because I didn't like to see that. And the way I changed my mind, what changed my mind is because I sobered up, or I quit using, and I wanted to be there for people. I wanted to support them, so that's why I made the decision to keep going, to start going back, to show up for the families, to bring food, and overlooking that. But it still gets me a little angry and frustrated today to see fallen soldiers, falling of overdosing because we are looked at for our behaviors. We are defined by our behaviors, not for the people who we are. Um, and, you know, feeling ignored and being treated as disposable by by your own family, your own community, you know, really hurts. It really cuts a person deep. And another experience is, when I did take off for a couple weeks, and my family just thought I was off doing my own thing, and it's scary because I don't know, I just have a lot of questions, they so how do we check in on the people we love? So, how do we check in on the people we love? Do you even want to check in on them? Or have you accepted that the person you love has chosen death? Have you turned your back on them? How can we protect ourselves and maintain our boundaries if someone we love has constantly wronged us, stolen from us, lied to us? Do we define those people by their behavior? And for an example, like they say, when you have a toxic person in your life and you set up boundaries, so you put them at a distance. Okay, so, it's not based on their usage, their using of drugs or alcohol. It's based on because they keep demeaning you, they keep talking down to you, they keep smashing your dreams, and you don't want that negativity in your life, so you put a distance, you put boundaries up. And then you have the people that are using, that may have stolen from you, that have lied to you, that keep saying that they're going to change, and they don't. The same behaviors. So you got two different people. And is it okay to put up boundaries for the person that is not using but has these toxic, narcissistic behaviors toward you that, smash your hopes and dreams, and you cut them off, completely cut them off? And then you have the person over here who stolen from you, come into your house, stole something, and sold it for drugs. So you cut them off, you're mad, you're angry, and what do we do? What do we do? How do we still stay? Do we even want to stay? Do you even want to stay connected with that person? Or, like I said, have you written them off as choosing death? And that's a hard call. And how can you still connect with somebody and protect yourself? Why does death have to spark someone's attention? There's a lot of women and men disappearing into the whole sex trafficking thing because people write them off. And it's sad, it's scary, and there's a lot of stigma and denial and fear that feed into that silence. So, how can communities perpetuate this invisibility amongst us? And this brings me back personal. I have a lot of personal reasons and experiences with this as far back as my grandmother. And this is why I feel so connected to MMIW. And for those of you that don't know what that is, that's Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women. And this happened to my grandmother in the, I want to say, 60s, late 50s. where you have somebody going through something, they run off with a man and disappear. You don't know who that man is. You just figure she's off with a man. And to be told lies, to be told that, to be passed down, to have that anger passed down, those lies passed down. Um, and yeah, but I was, that's just a personal struggle for me in many ways. This is a personal struggle for me in many ways, but I want to know how we as people and communities can still help and stay connected to the people that we love that are struggling with substance use disorder, with mental health, without writing them off. You know, um, Checking in doesn't mean giving someone the keys back into your life. It means you're strong enough to acknowledge their humanity while still protecting yourself. And tonight, I have 3 ways to do that so you don't lose yourself in the process of caring for someone you love. You know, so when you reach out, don't take it personally. If you reach out and silence, you don't hear anything back. Silence doesn't mean it's rejection. It might mean your loved one is deep in their struggle, ashamed, or not ready. But reaching out is something that can show them that you still care. And set a limit for yourself. Set a limit for yourself. Decide ahead of time how often you'll reach out. Once a month, once every few weeks. That way you're not left obsessing or waiting by the phone. And leave the door cracked. You don't have to leave it all wide open. Even if they don't answer a message like, just wanted you to know I was thinking about you, plants a seed so that they know you're still there. And when they're ready, they'll be there. And so, why do we have to wait for funerals to start caring for people? And the stress that I want to stress that goes along with that, how many times have we lost someone where we wish we could have just gave them a hug, one last hug, and we have the choice now to do that for them. Just give them a hug. And personally, I have the same struggle with people. I cut people I love out of my life, but how can I still be connected without opening that door wide open? Can I give that person one more hug as the last hug and still maintain my boundaries? That would mean me speaking my truth, and saying, just give me my hug. And then that's as far as I can go, and so yeah, so that's pretty passionate subject, I feel, because there are a few women that I know that we haven't heard from right now, and asking about them or getting like, oh no, she's off doing her own thing. Well, have you heard from her? No. Have you seen her? No. How long's it been? A few weeks. Well, her kids miss her. Does anybody care where she is or who she's with? Well, she's off with a man. Well, does anybody know that man? Does anybody care? And why do we have to wait till it's too late to reach out to somebody to check in? So just a few things to think about tonight. And I appreciate your guys' time. You know, the truth is, too many of us are treated as invisible until we're gone. How many of us wish we could have given someone one more hug before it was too late? The good news is you always have the choice to do that now. Every check-in, no matter how small, is an act of resistance against the silence. You can care without sacrificing your peace. You can reach out without reopening old wounds. Even if you don't hear back, your compassion still counts. Let's not wait for funerals to start paying attention. Let's choose to see people now while they're still here, because none of us are disposable. We all deserve to be seen. And, you know, after you check in, do something to ground yourself. Journal, call a supportive friend, pray. Prayer, there's so much power in prayer. Or just move, you know, go for a walk, connect with nature. You know, that way their silence, their pain doesn't spiral you into pain. We can do this without messing up our peace. You know, you can still say and love somebody from a distance. Alrighty, everybody. I hope you have a good night, and be kind, be respectful to one another. And I appreciate your time very much. And miigwech for walking with me. I'm just trying to think of if there was anything else I wanted to add, because that's, you know, maybe I'll share a little bit. It's a deep, hard subject, and probably share a little bit more into detail, I guess, tomorrow. Take it from a different perspective. And yeah, but miigwech for walking with me, and I see you. And check in on the ones you love. You know, give them that hug, because we're all still human, having a human experience. And to have compassion for one another, be kind, respectful. We're all going through something, and only us and God know why we choose the things we choose, why we make the choices we do. But we are the ones we've been waiting for. We are rising from the ashes together, guys. We're coming together outside of the systems, you know, because I really believe that we are the ones healing, that have been keeping the system going, keep steam rolling. We're healing outside of that. And when we aren't giving that system fuel, it doesn't know what to do. So they're shifting paradigms. All right, guys. I love you all. Miigwech for walking with me tonight. And I see you. I love you. Peace, love, and 100% respect out there. And Gigawabumin. That means see you later in Ojibwe. Have a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow. Miigwech.